Hey, fellow babies, you know me, I'm John. This is my friend Sydney. She's a badass. Sydney, tell me why. Tell me why you're a badass.
I think I'm a badass therapist and person in general because I don't think that I'm the best person. Contrary to like my high school self's opinion of me, I don't know the most and I'm not the best, which I think makes me a really good clinician. I don't think I know more than my client about their own life story. I think that I've been to school and I know research, but I don't think that I know everything, which I think keeps me really engaged in learning and current research. My learning hasn't stopped from when I graduated grad school, right? Which I think is really important. And I think ultimately helps with the empathy part of counseling and rapport building too, is that I'm not coming from this really high authoritarian plane. I recognize the power differential in the dynamic, but I'm not trying to use that against you or trying to like use that to, I don't know, make myself feel better about it. I think it's a really big honor when people come and see me because they don't have to. It's always harder to be in a therapy room than not.
Right.
So, yeah, I think they do me a huge service and I don't take that for granted.
Hey, that's cool. I like that, man, because I know your work from when you were doing science. It was good stuff. I'm not gonna lie, it was. And I'm not just saying that because she's my friend. It was good shit. I'm swear because I take it very seriously. I'm very competitive about it, and I recognize good shit when it was. It was good.
I think real recognizes real, right?
Right. It's all good, and it was good. It was real. With that said, I like that. I mean, I think that's true. I think we need to be as educated as we possibly can to stay on that razor's edge, you know, because new stuff's coming out all the time. I read something just the other day about how they can use psychedelics to reset critical periods. What?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think it helps fight complacency and it helps us fight for clients, right? Like, how can I know what the most cutting edge and helpful thing is for my client if I'm stuck in whatever was the most cutting edge thing when I was in grad school, right? Like, and even though that wasn't that long ago, right? Like, it's still, I mean, it's helpful. Stuff is coming out all the time and yeah.
God forbid that didn't happen because we were like, oh, you're just sexually repressed and you want to have sex with your mom. Or I want to have sex with my mom.
Yeah, I just go real Freudian with it. Which, I mean, talk about somebody that, like, I also real respect's real. He was great at what he did, but, like, there was no research involved, right? That was a lot of stuff being thrown at the wall and that, you know, some of it panned out.
I'm just happy that he did it because if it wasn't for him, who would it have been, you know? Somebody had to do it, and that's okay.
God forbid a woman, right? Like.
Well, you know what I think he did too? Also that, right? I think he kicked off the women's movement because, you know, his daughter was upset with him. Mm-hmm. Karen Horney was upset with him, you know, because it was all about men. And she's like, it's not about men, man.
Yeah, it's that weird, like, you know, yes and kind of a situation rather than a no but. Like, he absolutely revolutionized psychology as being like a legitimate field because he was already considered legitimate. And especially, like, women being able to have issues and that not just be seen as, well, let's, you know, take her on a vacation and the fresh air will get her. Right. But I mean, he also definitely, well, not but, and he also, like, you know, propagated a lot of the same stuff that everyone was already thinking then. And, you know, but it's one of those yes ands, right? Like, he was, I'm glad he existed. Cool guy. Cool. Not always a great guy, right? And,
I mean, I guess that's like all of us, right? I mean, so we got good parts and bad parts.
Right.
Okay, well, that's cool. So that's super cool. I like that. You know, science-based, that's very important to me. Mm-hmm. What is that demographic that you like to work with?
So I'm gonna be really annoying in my answer to this, so let me disclaim that. Because I think a lot about this all the time. I get asked this question a lot, of course, because people, even just making small talk, if they find out I'm a therapist, ask one of two things. One, which is like, what's wrong with me, right?
Everything.
Which, by the way, if we're at a party, don't ever ask me that, because like, what? It's not, I'm not a psychic, right? So you're not expecting like a fortune cookie style answer. You're wanting me to say like, I can tell you, your dad never loved you, right? Like, what are you wanting me to say at the shindig about this, right? But and I don't know. But beyond that, the other question they ask is like, what kind of demographic or who do I see, right? And the answer to that right now is pretty much everybody. I don't really have a favorite so much as people who are entering therapy the first time. I think I have a particular, care and desire to work with more and like a passion for. And that often typically coexists too with more marginalized populations. Naturally, more marginalization means less access to care. So those kind of both go hand in hand, at least in practice with me. And I really enjoy that. I love, again, the honor of being able to be present and as somebody's taking this huge, gigantic risk, right?
Yeah.
Coming into a therapy room, you were fighting every like stranger danger,
Right.
PSA you've ever heard. And you're telling this person that doesn't come from a marginalized background, your stuff.
Intimate stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the most intimate.
Yeah.
And so to hold space for that and to work with people that are having that, like I consider a huge honor and I have a really big passion for. And is honestly where a lot of my preference for research and stuff goes. And yeah, is trying to bridge those like cultural competency and just in general like demographic gaps in research is trying to provide for that.
Okay. I hear what you're saying, and I respect that. But
Yeah.
I heard a rumor that
Okay.
you're badass with kids. I heard this rumor. I think it's true. I can't do them. I'm just saying I have all the respect in the world because I'm like,
funny story.
allergic.
Neither can I. So I never wanted to because I love kids so much. I interned with the juvenile probation department like years ago,
Yeah.
and I was like, can't.
It's
It's too, I couldn't leave it at work, right?
Right.
Now, for whatever reason, with adults, I can. And for some of like my friends, it's the exact opposite. They're like, with adults, it carries over because, for whatever reason, and with kids, it doesn't. And for me, it's the opposite. And so it was more of a like, I don't think I can be a good clinician, and I will have to be in so much more therapy personally than I am already to be able to handle that. And so I never was interested in it again. And then when I switched to being in group practice when COVID hit, from just doing like agency work, beggars couldn't be choosers. And I look really young. And so I look like two kids in a trench coat. So, what parents say are like, you'll get my kid. Like, you are one of them.
Right.
And so I'm not actually as young as I look, but I do get it definitely, I think, relieves a barrier to entry. And so I had to switch up a lot of my stuff because I was using, I was cursing in sessions. I was using like all this other stuff with adults who were coming from criminal legal backgrounds
Right.
all of this other stuff. And then I was having to go to a session where I was like, that sounds so but like, instead of being, that sounds fucking horrible, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, he was not awesome.
Right.
But I think what ended up helping is that I'm really particular and like I don't get all of the kids that come referred to our office. We have great play therapists. And I think again, the fact that I don't think I'm the best means that if somebody still wants to work with me because they want to work with me because they know that like I'm not going to do as much play therapy or whatever, then we're going to work really well because I'm really impacted, at least when I'm working with kids, with how I went to therapy when I was little, which I hated. Like, I'm not a therapist because of my own experiences. And so I don't do a lot of talking down, which isn't what's happening anyway, right? But like, I'm so hypersensitive to that just personally that I do talk to them. Like, they're aware of what is the problem for them. And so if they are willing to meet me there and can, right, then yeah, I think we work really well together. And so I appreciate, but like it's funny that you say that because I was so worried about not being a bad therapist, but being a clinician that was going to be too emotionally involved. And I think that's actually what's helped me not be, is because I'm so aware of that being a concern of mine that I fight really actively against it. But so yeah, I love working with it's mostly like, preteens and teens. As far as that, most of my population is adults. But with the subset I do have that are younger, I love working with them, which is something I never would have done had, COVID and group practice and all of that happened. But yeah, it was certainly a struggle. So I can't really speak to like knowing some secret for it, so much as I let them kind of have a lot of dictates with it. I also they get to call the shots. Like if they want parents in, we'll bring parents in, but unless I think there's an emergency, parents don't traditionally come in. It gets to be their time because I get the confidentiality aspect is different, and they're aware of that, right?
Yeah, they totally are.
But they also, when we say, okay, well, if parents asked about certain whatever, we would have to answer. But I mean, that to them is like, if I lied at home, then I'm gonna have it be revealed. And so I do love in those moments being able to be like, I am gonna protect this space for you. And I think they can usually tell and appreciate that like I take that very seriously. And I am an advocate for them. I am not a go-between between parents. And now that may sometimes happen, but that's not, my allegiance is not to be triangulated here.
Right.
And if we do have to talk about emergencies, I give them the opportunity to talk about it first, because I want them to feel empowered to be able to have that kind of communication and not me. Because kids are a lot smarter and more emotionally intelligent than people give them credit for. So I try to really recognize that.
Cool.
That was the really long-winded answer of me saying, yes, but don't only send children my way. Although the ones that I have are I take it very seriously.
Cool. So, because it's funny too, because I have the exact opposite problem. Man, I walk away, I'm done. I don't remember any of that stuff. I'm out. And people, they're like, "Yeah, you're a psychopath." Maybe.
No.
Probably not. But maybe. Anyway, yeah, I can I can. I don't know why. I just can't. But not so much with the other ones.
Yeah. Well, see, and that's what, with adults, that's how I am. To the degree that's always been really great for me and has really worked out. I can't relate as much when therapists talk about not being able to leave it at work, because I've been really lucky to not have that happen yet. I mean, I don't, in the great words of philosopher Justin Bieber, right? Never say never. But but with kids, it has been different. But again, that piece of, I think, me being cognizant of it and having had prior experience has helped me be proactive about receiving care. And also knowing, I'm not afraid to refer out, right? If I don't think I'm going to be a competent clinician or one that I think you're deserving of, then, I will refer. I don't take it personally. My job is to help the client, and that sounds like I'm being hokey and very live, laugh, love, but genuinely, and I think that's what has ultimately helped with kids. But yeah, that has been tougher because it is harder for me to separate that.
Cool. So, in today's world and the crazy environment, we talked about a few things. Talked about cutting edge and scientifically. When you do that, you're always on, reading articles like the one I talked about with psychedelics.
Yeah.
Psychedelics is a really big thing right now.
Yes.
It seems like it is the miracle thing.
Yeah.
Right? Cures PTSD, depression, apparently it can reset in critical periods.
Yeah.
What can it not do? I don't even know. It probably,
Yeah.
and soon they'll be selling it as an ED drug. I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
What have you seen in your world that is a cutting edge thing? It's interesting that you want to talk about.
I think it's not necessarily that it's cutting edge so much as that people are finally funding it. So it's been around for a while, but funding for it has been more recent. So like the harm reduction approach to substance misuse, right? Is really like something that I track really heavily, especially in Canada and certainly, I'm gonna get it wrong, and so I want to say Switzerland. Has a lot of like research into that and have programs that are being funded for harm reduction. And of course there's some little clusters of that in the US, but not near as much. And that's really important to me because traditionally treatment for substance misuse has always looked like an abstinence-based approach.
Right.
And that if you didn't take an abstinence-based approach, then you didn't have an actual issue with substance dependency, or that we'll just deal with whatever we've got. It was still a harm reduction approach was looked down upon and is we'll take what we can get at this point. And so seeing research to suggest that that's not the case, that it can absolutely work for certain people, and it's not something to be considered as lesser than. Again, really just promoting individuality, especially as it comes to research, filling these research gaps of this one-size-fits-all model, and instead recognizing that there's alternatives is the stuff that I really pay attention to.
Right. Even when you buy clothes as one size fits all, man, you know that shit ain't true.
Yeah.
Come on. Why would we suspect that it would work for people? It doesn't. One size fits all, it doesn't work. I mean, the abstinence-based model is what when I interned at Grace, they had that model, and that's fine. That's fine. It just wasn't for me, because for me, I was like, what about those ones that are not going to work for? What are we going to do with them? And we're going to tell them that, you got to stop everything.
Right.
It doesn't feel right, and so I went to. They sent me to Smart Recovery so that we could do both sides of it, right? Because Smart Recovery is more like a.
And I love Smart Recovery.
It's pretty cool, right? We don't talk about addiction like a 12-step program does, and
no,
it's
much more shame, anti-shame.
Exactly, exactly. We're gonna work on this. We're gonna do it. We're gonna get there. You can slide. It's fine. People slide. It's all right.
Right.
Try harder next time. I know you can. I like that.
Yeah.
That seems more realistic to me.
Right. And I mean, I will say, I've worked for a lot of agencies that have had abstinent-based models, and it's while my personal credo doesn't speak to that, I also get that working for an agency, I don't always get to pick that. But I also, as long as the agency isn't asking me to co-sign and be and this is my personal, whatever, then I can be cool because it does work for a lot of people. And I'm willing to concede that too, right? I also don't think harm reduction from a, symptom perspective necessarily works for everybody, right? And
right.
So it's one of those that, again, I never think that I always leave room for user error, right? I am very comfortable with the fact that I don't know everything, and so I'm always searching. And to me, ultimately, dealing with the shame, combating that, especially because a lot of my clinical experience is working with people in the criminal legal system and with trauma and especially substance misuse, finding other paths for help, especially that are going to be centering the client's perspective about what their dysfunction looks like is really important to me. So letting them have some say-so because this is their life. And not just some, but it, right?
Right.
And so for some people that is going to be listen, I know myself well enough, I don't trust myself, I don't think I have the coping to whatever, or just I don't want to, right? I don't want to have to test that, because there's a misnomer too that the harm reduction method would be an easier approach, and that's not how that is either. And so to me right now, my current conceptualization of treating substance use personally is much more aligned with however the client sees it, unless directed by some power it be that understand, where I don't have that purview. But
Right. I think, what's been in the news lately is the Oregon experiment, we'll just call it that. The Oregon experiment, where a couple of years ago they decriminalized all drugs. And there was a report that came out 2 years later, oh, it's not working. Substance abuse deaths are on the rise, crime's on the rise, this is on the rise, blah, blah, blah. It's obviously not working. What they're not, you have to read the entire article, and gets to the bottom, the last paragraph, and it says, oh, and by the way, the funds haven't been distributed correctly.
Yeah.
Well, of course it's not working.
Yeah.
You just decriminalized the drugs and didn't put the services in place.
Right, yeah.
Come on.
Mutual aid and community support is a huge portion of it. If not the largest. And you can't take something away without, replacing it.
Right.
And if I am telling you that you shouldn't do this anymore, I'm sure as hell better give you something that sounds like a good alternative, right?
Right.
Because if not, why? Like, what would be the reason, right? And so it is hard to see stuff like that because it's those results with like an asterisk beside them, right?
To me, because the alternatives to 12-step programs or the abstinence-based program is choice-based.
Right.
So if you get a choice, you get to, ultimately you're responsible. But if your choice is to take drugs or to take drugs, that's not really a choice. If there's, in the Oregon experiment, we'll call it that, if your choice is to take drugs or to get in this harm reduction program that's well-funded, that's a choice.
Right.
But they don't have
But
that
even
choice.
then, it needs to also feel like an equitable choice, right? So if I am putting you in this program, but it's also not like it's just a program. Like you're gonna go to a class, right? Like it's also about figuring out like how is this substance helping me cope? What do I think? Because there have to be some pros to it, right?
Right.
And now those pros might not always be healthy. I mean, some of that might be like I'm not thinking about my problems, right? And so saying that the alternative is just, well, we'll talk about those. Like, sister, if that was super easy for me, like we wouldn't, this wouldn't be a thing. But also, understanding the like disease component of it, right? That like it's again kind of like a choice with an asterisk beside it, and recognizing that too, that it's not just going to be giving somebody like a leaflet that's like this is going to be, so great, because it also gets to be their choice and whether or not like they do consider it a problem, right? And that's something that some of those that research kind of neglects too, which is they're determining it to be an issue, like they're screening for them having a substance use disorder. But if the other person doesn't think they have dysfunction, right? Like, then am I allowed to call it dysfunction? And so it's hard because it's not necessarily equitable choices that you're choosing between.
That's cool. I like that. Hey, Sydney, man, it sounds like you really are badass. Who knew?
Thank you.
I think I did. I do.
Yeah.
Hey, but can I put your contact information at the bottom and stuff like that?
Yes.
People can comment and stuff like that. And
Yes, absolutely.
and they know where to find you. That sounds
absolutely.
cool. Yeah. Hey, let's wrap this up. So I always wrap it up with my 1-2 punch, right? And that is, what is your favorite self-care and your favorite mental health song?
Okay, my favorite form of, I'll do the song first. My favorite mental health song is just because it's mental health for me. It doesn't specifically talk about mental health, but it's Cool Cat by Queen. It just is the most easy song for me. And just always makes me feel better, but I don't already have to be in a good mood to listen to it.
Whatever works.
So that's good. And then my favorite self-care that I do is I wake up 30 minutes earlier, and then I have to. But wait, hold. And then I'm angry at the world. No one is allowed to talk to me. No one is allowed to breathe in my general direction for 30 minutes. I don't even listen to music because I'm so angry that if I listen to people be excited, I take it personally. And so my favorite self-care thing is to be an angry asshole for 30 minutes, but have no one around me. And then after that, I'm great. And
I think that's great.
but yeah.
Where can I sign up for that? But I
It's
gotta
been a
have it
game
for at
changer
least
for
2
me.
hours, though. It's gotta be from 8 to 10.
No, you'd be surprised. Being allowed and feeling entitled to being a colossal asshole and being like, I hate this day, I hate all of this, I hate whatever. I mean, really helps. And then feeling like my anxiety's reduced by being like, I have a time limit, and then get it out.
That's super cool. I've never heard that before. I love it. I'm gonna try it. You guys try it too. Hey, Sydney, it was fun.
It was.
Come back.
I will.
Okay. Bye, fellow babies.